So we're going to go through this. This is Aura Effects class. We're going to talk about auras. That's the topic. We're going to start off with, you don't really need to know anything, or if you're not very good with effects, that's fine. We'll go over it. But if you do know something about effects, then it's going to make it a little bit easier. I guess the first off is, so I'm running a number of extensions here just to show things off. I got COP Auras, which is a paid extension by Manicure. That is a visual indicator of what the aura looks like. You don't need that for your game, but for this class, I think it's beneficial. I have requested roles. You don't need that, but I want to show something off with that. I have Better Combat Effects Gold, which we are going to show off is in the free version that's on the Forge. I got Frankly Not. I'll show you something with that. But Friend Zone, you're going to want to use Friend Zone or something similar, probably if you're going to do proxy tokens for your auras. Obviously, we have auras here. And then I just have chat configurator to just change up the chat a little bit. So that's not required here. So we'll start off with the effects overview. So we'll come down here. We'll talk about what an effect is. So an effect is basically this whole thing of mumbo jumbo here. You can break that down into what I like to call clauses, and the clauses are separated by semicolons. You don't need to, but generally, and I recommend you put a label on first, and then that is an individual clause. And then obviously this is a clause as well. So the clause is broken down into modifier tags separated by a colon, and then there's a value, and then there's descriptors, which is describes the tag. So in our situation, we're going to use the aura tag, and the value is always the range or how big you want the aura. And then the descriptors are going to describe the behavior of the aura itself. If you haven't, what you do want to do is you want to have a good understanding of this page here. And there's one for every rule set. And they're basically all the same for what we're doing. Hold on a second. You want to try to understand this page. This is going to tell you everything about effects. And there's, like I said, there's one for each rule set. So that's going to describe everything. So let's get into the basics of an aura. So we're going to start off with a simple one. So we're going to apply just a simple aura to Shayna Toscobble here. This is our example aura 1. This is our label. Not required, but a good idea. We're going to define it as an aura, and then we're going to do semicolon, and that's going to be range 10. Range 10 makes it 10 feet from the edge of the token. So it circles around here. And if you move this around, it'll apply to all, because if you don't specify any descriptors, it defaults to all. So when we move it onto range, what is after this aura clause is what is applied to your people. So something is effectively applied. So this is a simple aura, aura 10. It's going to apply to everybody in the range, and that's how that works. And you can set up descriptors. We'll go back here. If we look at the aura documentation, this tells you all what can be applied as descriptors. So there's ally, enemy, foe, friend, neutral, and none. So ally is just the generic way to tell if you want them to, like if you put the aura on somebody who is marked hostile here, it's just gonna, their allies are also hostile guys. And if you put it on somebody who's marked friend, their allies are all the people who are green. So it's just a generic way to write auras. You can also prepend semicolon or exclamation point or tilde to the front of it, and that inverts it. So if we would say, like on our aura here, we want this to apply to ally, it'll apply to Anathema and Bjorn when we move in range. If we want to apply it to enemy, we move in here, it doesn't apply to Anathema or Bjorn, but if we move it over onto the skeleton, it will apply it. Something to know that all auras apply to the source of the aura. So if you want to prevent that, you would do if conditional, not yourself. So we'll talk about conditionals a little bit. So conditionals, Fantasy Grounds will execute everything after the conditional if the conditional is true. So this is saying, if not self, do all this mumbo jumbo after it. So whatever coding you have in after that. So if you don't want to apply the self, do that. What you really want here is you want to make sure your apply is correct. So you don't apply it to everybody. You could do all, and then you could do like something like if not enemy, right? But then the effect gets applied to everybody, and then it sorts it out after the fact, and it's pretty messy, and it's going to cause a little bit of a performance hit on your game. So that is the basics. We'll just open it up if you're lost. It's fine.
The main reason why you have that ability to put aura in an effect is because of the aura effects extension alone.
I guess I don't understand the question. Is
what draws the circle around the token?
The circle around the token is COP auras by Maticure. If you don't have that, it's not going to draw the circle, which is fine. But again, for this class, that's why I'm running, so you can actually visually see it. Some people also use B9 spell tokens, and you can kind of do that too. Give a visual indicator of the aura itself, if that's what you want. But aura natively doesn't draw this circle. So.
And then the actual applying the effect to the other token, that's aura effect.
Correct. Anything. So we just have a visual reminder here of how big the aura is because we set it to 10. If we set it to 15, right, it gets bigger. 20 gets bigger. So this is how things are applied. So we're applying it to all, and everybody within this circle gets something added to it. And this something is the applied aura. So this is the something is the effect that you're adding after the fact. Again, this aura : value descriptors describes the aura. And then this is what the effect that gets applied depending on if you're in range or not. We'll show off some new stuff, I guess.
One thing I just noticed, wanted to point out, that you had the effect if not self, and it was already applied to people. When you deleted it, you had to move the aura off the people and then back on for it to update. I just wanted to point that out to people.
Yeah, it could do that. There's some performance sort of code in there to not recalculate the auras all the time. I find in game, you're really not going to be messing with this. If you're running a game, you just apply it and move on, right? So in the new aura update that we just put out, traditionally auras are spheres. They used to be circles until Smiteworks put in the height stuff. But now they're spheres, right? So you can think of this as this actually, is a sphere. What we also have here is a cube type. Now you can do cubes. So the cube, the side of the cube is that value's 20 cube. So as you can see, 5, 10, 15, 20. So this is a cube. You can do a cube, and then anything in the cube again will get applied and to have it apply, you have to be inside the cube. There's no like halvesies, because otherwise it's too big. So you can now make cubes, which is useful because there are cube things. You can't make walls, but you could sort of kludge together a wall if you put a bunch of proxy auras on a bunch of different guys and line them all up. But the point is you can do a cube. So that's nice. Then we also have sticky. So if we make it sticky, make a cube sticky. So then you go in it and you come out of it and it's stuck to you, right? So it doesn't go away. Why would you want to use sticky? If you have like a trap, maybe you could use this for traps. Like they go into a poison cloud and then they have to make a save to get rid of the poison gas or whatever. But that was a request at some point by somebody that we rolled in. If we look at the other documentation, the real motivation for me doing the update to begin with was this text here in 5e. And this applies to a lot of stuff, a lot of spells in 5e, and it's kind of a unique sort of aura that isn't present in any other rule sets that I've seen, and this is actually a really good rule, and it kind of prevents players from exploiting, entering. You can't keep moving in and out of an aura to get, it multiplied. We'll show this one off. So single, if you have a spell in 5e that has this text, which a lot of them do, when a creature enters the area for the first time or starts their turn there. Not sticky, but single. All right. Click these off. All right, so what this is going to do is if it doesn't apply the aura, if the aura moves, right? So as you can see, it doesn't apply. It only applies if somebody enters the area or if they start their turn there, right? So we'll take this guy, Bjorn, and we'll move him in, and he gets it. And if we move him out and move him back in, he doesn't get it because he only gets it once per turn, right? Does that make sense to people?
Yes.
To be clear here, too, once per turn is any turn, not just their turn.
It is any turn. So if we do it so Bjorn already entered the aura, so he doesn't get it again on this turn. You go to the next turn, Bjorn enters, he gets it. He leaves, he doesn't get it on this turn again. Go to the next one, he can get it again, right? He has it. And if he starts his turn there, back this up. So we move the aura onto him, right? He doesn't get it because he didn't actually move. You actually have to move to get this on. If he starts his turn there, now he gets it again. So again, the important part is this is the rule that you want to use single for when a creature enters the area the first time or starts a turn there. If you're in the aura and then you move, and you didn't have it, you'll get it. But the token actually has to move. And we'll show off actual spell on this later. Once is kind of the same sort of idea, but you will only get the aura once per turn if you start or enter the area or if the aura is onto you. So there's not really a rule for this, but you could, if you have that case, you could do that. You get it once per turn, but if the aura moves onto you, you get it, which you didn't get that with the single behavior. Seeing none. So that is the additional descriptors. Just show, this is an aura again, but this will be COP aura, the thing that draws it. What he did do is you can add color blue. And you can make your auras different color if you use that extension, but that is the COP auras extension you can do that with. The basic one is be like an aura of protection. And I will put this in the chat. Chat. So this is the basic aura. A lot of rule sets have some to this. Basically, it is you have a radius of 10 feet. You want it to apply to friends, right? Because an aura of protection applies to friendly units. You could apply it to friend, or you could do ally, right? Again, if you want to do ally is probably better. And then you have so this is the aura label for the guy who, initiates the aura. And again, everything after it is what is applied. We have a secondary label. Why do I put the $sign there? The $sign is a visual reminder because when you look at stuff like this, you can go, oh, that's a aura that was applied to me and I'm not the source of it. So it works out. You can do that, but that's not required. Again, you don't have to put a label here, but it's a good idea. It does save. It gives +2 the saves when you're inside the aura. So you move on. Toss Cobble has save +2 the saves. Anathema has +2 the saves. You move out. It just does that. And that's how aura has always been. So that's the basic applied aura. Seeing none. So let's talk about Spirit Guardians for 5e. So if you've ever run a game in Fantasy Grounds with Spirit Guardians, you know that it kind of makes your game kind of come to a crawl before using auras, because you have to track all this stuff and you got to know, did they enter the area or not, blah, 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 blah. So this will automate it completely. What do we have? Enemy, neutral, single. Let's see. I'll just copy this and put this in chat. I'll put that in chat here later, I guess. Try it like this. I got all kinds of things going on here, don't I? So Spirit Guardians, if you know, it implements that single. So what happens is you bring the skeleton in, and did he get it? I have wrong here. Neutral. I got to do. Okay, so this is using better combat effects. This is a save, and this is a save add. Anything that implements a single rule is going to be similar to this. You're going to want to save add. So this, when the effect gets added, it's going to roll the save automatically. And then save at the start of the turn, save as. There are other extensions that you can do this sort of thing, but you're going to want something that does this if you want to automate it. And you're going to have to use a different extension because Aura just applies things. It doesn't actually do things, like as in do effects. So, got this right. What do I have wrong here? Save and Spirit Guardian. Oh, he has it there. There we go. So he fails the save and he gets the Spirit Guardian's damage. If he's in the aura, again, he will come around and he leaves the aura. He doesn't take it when he moves through the aura, but he does take it when he starts his turn there. So that is how Spirit Guardians works.
I do have a I want to tell people about a use case here where it could potentially come up in play on this aura not being fully automated. And that use case is if you need to exclude a party member from your protected single, meaning if your party member, let's say, is down the street and you cast Spirit Guardians, they would not be technically protected under the list of people protected under Spirit Guardians per the rules. So the coding would still protect them when they got there to the Spirit Guardians from not triggering the aura on them. So you'd have to either manually not give them the like stop the effect and re-roll it back, or you would have to code in their custom tag for those things. It also happens if enemies are two enemy factions listed as enemy faction, one casts Spirit Guardians, but they're actually against each other. They would the effect would not go off of the enemy faction correctly. So you need to make a use case for that too.
Yeah, you can do that as well. Like, so if you're going to apply it to allies, right? And you don't, well, to enemies, and you have this whole thing. And again, you want it to not apply to yourself. But you can also do something like you can use the, and this is in Fantasy Grounds native, well, 5e at least. if custom, and then you can do foo, right? Foo. And what this if custom does is it looks an effect that's called foo on whoever. So you would do, actually you can't, you'd need a not. To actually do this, you would actually, there's a extension called if not effects that would do this. Or you can use Better Combat Effects Gold, that does it too. But the idea is like, so if foo, might be case sensitive. What would happen is if you have foo on here, it will plot, or you can filter that out. So you want this to evaluate to false, essentially, because it executes everything after this. So if you want not foo, I think this will work.
I wanted GMs to be aware that some cases like this might creep in every once in a while, and with the automation of auras, it can be very difficult to stop it from happening. So the case here is, like you're saying, you need to add an if effect on the person that is outside that case.
Yep, exactly. And honestly, if you're going to do an aura, this is something to do in prep and you test it, or you have a known working effect. You wouldn't edit this in game generally because it's just too time consuming and error prone to like get everything all correct at the time.
The best way might be put an immune effect on it so it doesn't get the aura at all.
Right.
Maybe that's better.
So then let's talk about other spells. So this aura is something that applies to you, right? Generally, that's how you think of auras. But then we have spells such as, well, let's see here. Here we go. So if we look at Cloud Kill, right? So Cloud Kill's a spell, D&D spell for a while. You create a 20-foot radius sphere of poison grass centered on a point you choose, right? So in this case, you want it to be not on you, but somewhere else. To do that, you need a proxy. And the way that I would recommend doing that is to give your players a proxy cohort with friend zone or something similar. You don't have to do that, but then at least the players can move this guy around and put it where they want. If you don't have friend zone or anything, you can do it, but the GM's going to have to place the proxy token where they want. What else you want is you're going to want this to be tiny because, again, it calculates the aura from the outside of the token and you want it to be small so it's actually the right size. And then also what you're going to want to do, what I would recommend, you don't have to, is I would set this guy's faction to none. And if we set all the proxy tokens to none, you can have it so tokens don't affect, or auras don't affect other auras. So if we cast Cloud Kill, and why do you need a proxy? Because you need something to attach aura to, and it has to be in the combat tracker. It can't just be a token that's not linked to the CT, because to have it actually do anything, you actually have to use a token. So put this guy on here, right? So Cloud Kill, again, we have applies to all. It's the single case, again, because it's move into the area for the first time or start your turn. Applies all this stuff. So we move in the Cloud Kill. He takes the damage, right? And you can move the token again, but it's not going to trigger unless the tokens move into the area. So this is how you would do Cloud Kill. You would set up a proxy. And if you had multiple, like if somebody had Spirit Guardians and somebody had Cloud Kill, you can filter out the faction. You can be like, if not, none. And then your proxy tokens don't get hit with your effects. You would do that in cases where you have multiple of those going on, but generally that's not the case. So it's probably not that big of a deal, but just so you're aware. So that's how I recommend to do area of effect spells. You can do that. And you can also use the same sort of idea to set up traps. You could set up a token like this, and maybe this whole area in here is difficult terrain. It marks it. You could say, oh, your aura effect could be difficult terrain, right? So you can mark it where there's difficult terrain or again, traps or whatever you want to do.
I do want to reiterate here, you covered it for a split second, but it's very important that the token is linked to a CT entry, because you can't just grab a token from the assets like it's spell image or something. It won't work. It needs to be in the CT.
It won't work. And again, that is because your effect has to be attached to something in the CT, because the effects processing only processes things in the CT. And if it's not in the CT, you don't have anything to attach the effect to. So if you're using something like B9 spell tokens, you can put spell tokens on the map, but they don't have a CT entry. So in addition, you also need proxy token. So if you're going to use B9 stuff, you would put your proxy out and attach his spell token to your proxy, and then you put the aura on there as well. Let's see. What else do I have here? We'll go over this. So this is Matty Cure's complete offensive package auras. That's, again, what's drawing this. Here's the documentation. You can set different colors and whatnot, transparencies and whatnot. If you're looking for documentation on aura effect, I would go to the Forge page, and you can read all about it, what these things do. Again, you can use not and tilde. It says here's the documentations for this stuff as well. And I did post a bunch of 5e when we did the testing for auras, a bunch of codings that work with better combat effects and auras in the forums. There's a 5e aura effects coding. That list is not complete, but there's a bunch of them, and they all kind of look the same because they're like this. There's a save A, and there's a save S, and there's a save damage. The details on that, if you're going to change it, is usually like, do I want a cube? How big do I want it? And who do you want it to apply to? And most of the rest, and how much damage or whatever is going to happen is what you're going to change on those for most of those spells. So you can build auras yourself if you have ideas, or if you have OGL content that has some weird rule, you can build this stuff. It just works. It just saves you a ton of time if you just use something somebody else came up with. So I'll show you something else that came up the other day. So Vass in the FGA Discord here came up with this solution using aura. So let's look at this, right? So the idea here is he wanted to automate we'll show it here.
Like you could automate like a lava pit, right? Here's this big flaming lava pit, and then somebody walks into it, and then boom, immediately just from walking into it, they get the effect or damage or whatever, right?
This coding?
The one you said that he came up with this coding, and I can't see it because I'm driving.
Okay, yeah, I can read it. So the idea here is that we have a stone guard, and he has something called the Phalanx Formation, and it says he has advantage on attack rolls and dexterity saving throws while standing within 5 feet of an ally wielding a shield, right? So how would you code that to automate that in Fantasy Grounds? Well, there's probably a few ways to do that. None of them are at all obvious. But he came up with a unique sort of way using aura. So he has a label here. It's called Phalanx Formation. And he has aura 5 ally. So that's going to apply an aura around the token that, applies to any ally within 5 feet. Then he says, if the faction is not self, so don't apply it to me, the person who has the aura. And then it says, if custom Phalanx Formation. So what that's basically saying is, don't apply it to me, but if I'm within 5 feet of somebody who also has a Phalanx Formation aura, then I know my buddy is standing there, and the assumption is that, well, it's somebody, an ally wielding a shield, because you're only going to put this aura on somebody who wields a shield, right? And then since those are both true, right, you're not, and you give advantage attack and advantage save dexterity. So you can use auras to like do weird things like this. It's not just circle of protection, right? So that's really, I thought it was really creative. But yeah, you can do traps, like I said. You can do walls, like I said. If you make cubes and you put a whole bunch of cubes in a row, that's a little bit more tedious, but you can actually do that.
How do you detect the shield? Or is it just the assumption that somebody close to them is wielding a shield?
You can't really detect the shield, but the idea here is you would only put this aura effect on somebody who has a shield, right? So if you have a number of NPCs who don't have a shield, or they lose their shield, you can click it off, or you can just not apply the aura to that actor in the combat tracker. So you're going to have to kind of do that as a DM, but I mean, once you have it set up, it just does it. So it's pretty slick. Some deficiencies with aura. I'll talk about that. Generally, auras shouldn't go through walls, but auras do go through walls because there is no way for extension devs to determine the line of sight through an extension. It would be nice if SmiteWorks would have a function that returned all tokens that are within line of sight, but you know, it's not the case. So that's a drawback. So if you're putting auras in and you have guys in different rooms, just be aware that it's going to hit them if they're within range, even going through walls. You also can't set the duration of any applied aura effect. It's always going to be 0. So that is also a request add for auras that isn't in there yet, but might be in the future. I'll also show off something else. There's another extension I have. So one of the complaints I always had from my players was like, I can't read anything. Like if you have rage, it's like I can't read because there's all this garbly-gook, right, in your thing. So I have an extension. It's called Frankly Not. Cleans that up. Turn this on. And this is per player. So what it does is it just takes all that garbly-gook off and hides it. So see, it's just your label, but you can click on it and it comes back. This is kind of nice, I think, for in-game. It takes a little bit getting used to. And it also cleans up this stuff here. Yeah, Spirit Guardians has always been problem child, so I'm gonna knock that out. And it's, you know, it applies to more than Spirit Guardians, but it's always been Spirit Guardians has been problem child that people have always wanted fixed. And I think the problem before was like BMOS doesn't play 5e, so he doesn't really have any motivation or necessarily understand the problem.